Good morning. Calling our commission meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. This time we have our invocation and pledge. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time to come and discuss the business of the city of Lynn Haven. I pray that you would endow us with wisdom, knowledge, and give us understanding in regards to the matters that we discuss. Help us to be civil and respectful, and help us to be filled with your spirit, that we might speak your thoughts and your heart to one another. Continue to bless this city with your great blessings. Continue to give us abundance in wealth, abundance in love, abundance in prosperity. Thank you that we really do live in the best city in the Northwest Panhandle. And thank you for everyone who contributes to a great quality of life for all of us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. This time we'll have our public commentary. Mr. David Switzer.
Morning, City Commission. I'm seeking some facts and answers today. In the last City Commission meeting, Pastor Chris prayed that our City Commission would seek guidance from God and his wisdom. Part of that meeting held the following tones: resentment, name-calling, manipulation, floating racism, claims of free speech violations, and jealousy. All of that came from one person, our mayor. Mayor, you're an educated man, so I assume you understand the need for sound reason and citing sources. I ask that you answer the following questions using that method. Resentment. You said you were appalled and offended as an African American that Jamie called a former NFL quarterback a POS almost 7 years ago on a Facebook post. He didn't even say piece of you know what. He said POS. The post was so offensive it got 6 likes, 3 comments, and 1 share. Why is that post so appalling and offensive to you? What does it have to do with you being an African American? You claimed you alleged there was a tent meeting in 2021 and a handful of people, including Jamie, discussed making changes to Lynn Haven leadership. You called him a liar when he denied it. Is Jamie a liar or are you? Cite your source. Manipulation. You vigorously repeated Lynn Haven cannot live by a double standard and you used Jamie's post as an example. Let's compare Jamie's post and Ramey's text and see if there's a double standard you claim. Jamie's post stated that poor leadership can ruin an organization and that the leader needed to be replaced with someone who would lead with standards, matching his opinion of the Ramey issue. The post wasn't unethical or immoral. It didn't lack values. Clearly nothing he posted needs an apology. You try to compare that with Ramey sending immoral, unethical, homophobic texts that we're all sick of hearing about, that he apologized for when exposed. That's comparing apples and oranges. You cherry-picked one line from his post and missed his point. How's Jamie's post wrong other than you think that it's wrong? Mayor, you're not the standard of Lynn Haven, and disagreeing with you does not, even if it's contentiously, does not create a double standard for the city. Explain why you gaslight Jamie, City Commission, and residents. You floated racism. You said you hope and believe you're not being treated differently because of your race, but then, in the same breath, you questioned if your race was the reason citizens infringed on your freedom of speech. I think you also said that the city or community thinks that you're being treated differently because of your race and we need to be careful. That's a serious claim that needs to be elaborated on. What do you mean? Also, do you believe your skin color is a motivation behind your perceived unfair treatment? If so, how? To me, it appears that the only thing wrong with your skin is it appears too thin for local politics, and here's why. You said you don't understand why residents violate your free speech and retaliate against you. Let me help you understand they don't. The fact is, people disagreed with you, they interrupted you, they called you names, and were rude to you.
Thank you.
You can't handle that without throwing out wild accusations.
Mr. Switzer, that's your time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Parker?
Good morning. I want to start out by saying, reading some of the comments that were made on the City of Lynn Haven post about last commission meeting. I'm only going to read a few of them because there's over 200 of them. And I would say 99% of them are not for you. Unbelievable, disgusting, disappointed by this mayor. Such an embarrassment to Lynn Haven. Yes, Warwick is a hero. I have never witnessed such a childish outburst from an elected official. This was a disgraceful show of arrogance, lack of decorum, and leadership skills from Nelson. No one cares about the color of anyone's skin except for those who love to use color of their skin as a weapon to hide their corrupted, narcissistic, obtruse nature. This was not a display of morals and ethics. It was simply a display of gaslighting, manipulation, and victimhood. Nelson proved by his own actions what people have been stating all along. He needs to be recalled for his seat. Mr. Nelson is bashing Warwick again. Facade of decorum presented by the corrupted parasites of the Diaz was breached tonight, and I say congratulations to all those who spoke out and will continue to speak out. Dumpster fire. City attorney needs to clarify his freedom of speech as a private citizen versus a public official. Looks like the majority of the comments are against mayor's behavior. You have single-handedly made Lynn Haven the laughingstock of Bay County. Shameful mayor. Is this mayor really behaving like this? Commissioner Warwick investigated like the city and other commissioners should have done. He was betrayed and face-planted for doing so, doing right by the citizens. And one other thing that I want to pull up and discuss is when you said that we had discussed about Ricky and the police department, disbanding the police department. That part of it is totally untrue. And if you can prove it, show me the proof. Do I want Vicky and Ricky gone? Yes. There's multiple reasons. Have I said that before? Yes. And I will continue to say it. Was Jamie there when any of that was going on? I don't know. That was years ago. Did I hear him say something like that? No. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jody Moore.
Good morning. I'll repeat some of those things. I hope you had a good vacay, Mayor. I'm here today because I had to wait 2 weeks to address in person some things that were said at the previous commission meeting. When it comes to my sitting around talking about getting rid of Vicki Gaynor and Ricky Ramey and wanting a city clerk, if I said that, I don't deny it. I've said that, and I've been very open about wanting those things, so it's not really a big deal. However, I would never want to defund the police. That is stupid. I would never say that. And I want to hear your evidence of that. If you threw out the accusation, I'd like to hear that. I'd like to see the proof. And when it comes to Commissioner Jamie Warwick and his supposed Colin Kaepernick statement, because he did make it, if that was so offensive to you, Mayor, why didn't you say anything about it when Commissioner Warwick endorsed you for mayor last year? And you didn't refuse the endorsement, so it wasn't that offensive to you. You said you had heard about it years ago. I have devoted myself to making sure the truth gets told, so I think it's pretty clear who's telling the truth and who are liars. Even though at the last commission meeting you called me a liar and applied others and I are racist. If you were trying to deflect attention from Ricky Ramey, you didn't succeed. That issue is not going away. Now I have some time left. Last time you said you could, quote, do this all day. So I'll wait here if you want to address me before I sit down.
You can wait.
Okay. Well, I just don't want to sit down and then have comments, and I don't shout out from, the seat. So if you want to address anything with me here, I have a minute and 20 seconds.
You can spend it how you like.
Okay, you don't have anything else to say to me?
No.
Okay, thank you, then I'll sit down.
Thank you. Ms. Christy McElroy.
Christy McElroy, Port St. Joe. I wanted to address several things. The Lynn Haven corruption case is what brought me here. I grew up in Panama City. I've been in the Panhandle for 56 years. After college, I could have gone other places. I did not. I stayed in the Panhandle. The first document that you'll look at is from a 302 that Vicki Gaynor made and utilized my name in that 302 and made false statements. I'm not going to speak to the other people, but from talking with them, she also made false statements about them. I can assure you, anyone that knows me, I'm unconventional, a little feral, but I do nobody's bidding. I came here because of your attorney, who was over in Panama, who was over in Port St. Joe, and was our attorney. He was also doing conflict of interest things with the county attorney over in Gulf County, and was also the magistrate over at Gulf County. So that's what brought me here. And then all this other stuff unfolded. I can assure you I've had several conversations with Margot Anderson. The longest is probably 20 minutes when I apologized to her because, like most people, I thought she was guilty, but she wasn't. And she showed nothing but grace in that federal courtroom. So I went to her because I can humble myself and say when I'm wrong. And I deeply and sincerely apologize to Margot. That was probably the longest conversation I've ever had with her, although I do know some of her family members who are wonderful people. If you look at the next item that is stapled separately, it concerns Michael Gordon and the targeting from your police chief, Ann McAlinden, after his arrest. And they tried to say he didn't show up to pretrial parole meetings or whatever. Well, so they were going to go pick him up. So you look at those text messages. The next item, he also calls Michael Gordon a tard. So make sure you pick that up. The last item that I'll go over today is
Thank you.
concerning
That's your time.
your chief of police,
Thank you.
Chief Goose.
That's your
He's
time.
an embarrassment. And please stop exporting your
Thank you.
trash here
That's
in
your
Bay
time.
County to Gulf County.
Thank you. All right, any additional public commentary? Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm up here not to make noise, which some of the commissioners think we're supposed to do. And I'm not here to finish off the triad and 4 people that you have labeled consistently as being against you. A long time ago when I joined the U.S. government, I learned one thing. When you sit on panels and you address it as an official officer, and especially with promotions, you do not reference the individual. You do not reference by name. You just say subject. Therefore, from now on in, I will never address, and I have never done it, by name anybody that I feel is making a mistake, which is an employee, which I never do, or a commissioner. I will mention their title or their position within the government. If you want to if I make an accusation, if you want to assume a name to go with that, that's your problem, not mine. I'm just saying their office and them demonstrating a job in their office is incorrect. So remember, this is not, and what happened in the years before was this was interpreted to be personal. It's not personal, it's professional. We're asking you for advice. We're asking for your staff for advice, answers to questions. I'm not attacking them. I'm not attacking them. I'm asking them, are you doing your job? It was mentioned from this commission, the fact that you want to reestablish your credibility with the citizens. If you believe any American citizen believes wholeheartedly, 100% in their government, then I've got a bridge to sell you from New York. Never are we always going to agree. We have the right to disagree. That will be professional. That will be with courtesy. You have remarked about that, and I appreciate that, Mayor. Remember, what we say, professional, not targeted at a name, targeted at your position and your job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public commentary? All right, this time we move on to the mayor's report. We have a proclamation for Americans with Disabilities, and it reads, whereas National Disability Independence Day commemorates the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, on July 26, 1990. The ADA provides protection from employment discrimination, as well as better access to goods, services, and communications for people with disabilities. And whereas the day not only celebrates the anniversary of the ADA, but it also serves several other purposes. The law first broke down barriers that individuals with disabilities face every day. And over time, common areas became accessible to wheelchairs, including braille signs and crosswalks for the vision impaired, improving mobility and safety. And whereas beyond structural changes, the Americans with Disabilities Act motivated designers to enhance technology that often restricted a person's ability to access legal or health information, with new assistive technologies making it easier to obtain the necessary information. And whereas as accessibility improves, the world continues to change in other ways. Many of today's brick and mortar businesses are ADA compliant. However, as more and more businesses switch to online versions, their websites need to include technology that incorporates multifunctional approaches to fit every ability. And whereas we encourage all employers and designers to consider how accessible their business is to people with disabilities. The ADA empowers and encourages people with disabilities to stand up for their rights and to give shout outs to accessible businesses and organizations by using Disability Independence Day hashtag and sharing on social media. Now, therefore, by the virtue and authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Lynn Haven, on behalf of the city commission and all the citizens of Lynn Haven, we do hereby declare the proclamation as follows, that the City Commission of the City of Lynn Haven calls upon our citizens, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to affirm the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities, to celebrate the freedom the ADA inspires with forward-thinking design and technology, and to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA, and that the City Commission and all citizens of Lynn Haven do hereby recognize July 26, 2024, the 34th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act that passed in 1990, as National Disability Independence Day, signed on this 11th day of July, 2024. In regards to the public commentary that was addressed towards me, I know Mr. Switzer, you and I have emailed back and forth. So if you're available today after this meeting, we can meet and follow up on your questions. In regards to the other questions regarding my statements, there are news links if you're looking for evidence. All right, that's my report for today. Commissioner Peebles.
You can turn the mic on. Thank you, Mayor. So just want to say it was an honor to be part of the parade. That was a lot of fun. My arms are still sore from throwing all that candy, and I loved every second of it, seeing all the smiling faces from all the families. Great turnout to the parade, a lot of families. Even though it was crazy hot, people still showed up and showed out, and it was awesome. Thank you to all the staff and everyone that made that happen. I mean, there was so many staff working in that heat, and I really do appreciate it. I think that the citizens and people around the city of Lynn Haven really do appreciate all the work that you put into that. And I can say with the fireworks, when I went the whole show from start to finish, I would say without exaggeration, that's probably the best firework display and show that I've been a part of since I've lived in Lynn Haven. So kudos to everyone that made that happen. It was really awesome. My family had a great time. Even though it got dark at 9 o'clock at night, I kept my kids up really late for that, and they really enjoyed it. Summer hours are crazy. All right, so I also want to thank Mr. Greg Frith for applying for the Financial Review Committee. So thank you, Mr. Frith, for doing that, for stepping up to the plate and being part of that committee. Of course, technically you still have to vote on it, but just the fact that you put your name in the hat, I just want to say thank you for that. So many of you reached out to me about last meeting. I think it's important that our meetings have order and fairness. That includes us up here, all of us. In order for us as a commission to do our main goal, which is what's doing best for the citizens of the city, we must not be divided. I have faith going forward that we can all work together as a team, regardless of if we see eye to eye. I think that's important. I think in our society, there's a misconception that to be part of a team, you must agree on everything, or that if you don't agree with everything, then you're going against the team. And I truly believe that neither one of those statements are true. We can disagree. In fact, I think it's good to disagree. Being respectful and disagreeing is the key. Disagreeing is healthy. It forces us to think logically. It forces us to do research. And it helps us see things from different angles. That's why we have 5 people on the commission, because we have 5 people from 5 different walks of life that see things from different points of view. We must be a team in our main goal of doing what's right for the citizens and what's right for the city. That's our main goal. And as 2 of the greatest men that in history have said, that a house divided will fall. So I think that I agree with them. That yes, we're not going to see eye to eye on things, but we should not let that deter us. We need to still have that team mentality, make sure we're not divided, and do what's right for both the city and the citizens. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Perno?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Peebles, I agree with everything you said about the 4th of July parade. It was fun to be on there, except it was a big old float, and it was just 2 of us. I'm thanking Chris Lightfoot's daughter got on there and threw with us, but my arm was also sore the next day. I just don't think that the employees can do any better than what they did this year, the way we put on the parade. I know there was a lot of comments about the splash pad not being open, but y'all give everything you got to get that parade going, and the day before and the day of. And I know that the timing wasn't good for the closing of the King Griffin splash pad. And I know the city's, I know the reason why, but I just wanted to state publicly, along with a big thank you to everybody, that sometimes you gotta get up one thing to do another great thing. So, and then I had a lot of comments from people about our last meeting, and I got a lot of phone calls. I've been to a lot of these meetings, Mr. Walker. I know you have too, and the people that come regularly. I appreciate everything you do and say at meetings. There's dissenting opinions, all the way up to the Supreme Court, but decisions are made and things have to flow. I don't want to rehash or relive last meeting, but I want to move forward with due process and finish what we voted to start on the Chief Ramey issue. And that's all I'm going to say, because we stood by, as we've agreed, by the council that's advised us. So I'm firm on that, and I'm thankful to everybody to have an opinion, and I'm thankful to be in the city of Lynn Haven, and that's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward?
I don't really have a whole lot. Just to let everyone know, the reason I'm not there is because I had an unexpected death in the family. So I'm going to be out of the local area for a little while, and just looking forward to coming back to Lynn Haven later this month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Vandegrift?
I don't want to rehash last week, but I do want to apologize to the citizens of Lynn Haven. Our job is to move this city forward. We want to, maintain our status of being a safe, beautiful city. And so I think that's what we need to concentrate on is moving this city forward. I am sorry that I did not attend the 4th of July. My husband was in the hospital, so I thought I needed to be with him. But I've heard great things from all over Bay County about the Lynn Haven activities. So it's not just our Lynn Haven residents that benefited, it was all of Bay County. And I know that our staff workers worked very, very hard, and I also want to congratulate them. I agree with Mr. Peoples. That is true. A house divided doesn't accomplish much. And so we have to remember that we want to work for the benefit of our citizens and the city.
Thank you. City Manager?
Warrant list.
Good morning. You have questions about the warrant list?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry I didn't call you earlier and ask you. Broadway trucking,
That's the dump truck.
and we're still continuing to pay Green South Solutions.
Yes, ma'am.
I know Mr. Lightfoot is sick and tired of me asking about that.
He's sick of me asking about it as well.
Is this going to be a continuing issue?
It is, not to the extent of what you've seen in the last couple of months.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Just a couple of things, feedback. I've gotten a plethora of calls, and lots of people stopped me on 4th of July to thank us in the city for a really great day. We start that event at 5 a.m. in the morning, and some of us, we're out there to 10, 11 o'clock at night. We do it because we love the city, and we want the very best for our residents. Thank you, the staff. They are awesome. We all work together, pitch in, and make it work. That's what it's all about. We are a team. We're tired, but we're a team. And we work for the city, and we're blessed to work for this city. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out for July 4th. And sorry you two, I saw you two over there throwing candy, and I knew it was going to be a long day for you guys throwing candy there, but you got it done. And so we thank everyone that participated in that day, entire day. We estimated probably about 10,000 people came out to Kinsale that night. Probably had about anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 at the parade. So it's a great day for the city of Lynn Haven. Fall registration is open for fall ball. Currently, we have kids signing up for volleyball, and they can sign up on the city website. Remember that there is a comprehensive plan workshop facilitated by Dr. Chapin of Florida State University, along with Amanda. She'll be here as well to answer any questions on July the 16th at 5 p.m. The Boys and Girls Club will open for registration for after-school care on July the 18th. I encourage citizens that live here in the city of Lynn Haven to go on and register. They were already booked solid for the summer program. So if you're looking for after-school care, our Boys and Girls Club and our gym at the Recreation Center will start that registration for after-school care on July the 18th. Something that CRA director and the former fire chief started working on, and now the new fire chief, Chief Baba, they've come to finish, is that a traffic signal override will be installed for the fire department. As you know, the going Highway 77, 390 has gotten pretty congested. Any emergency, they're going to have a time getting through there. They want to be able to get to you or citizens as fast as possible. So being installed by the Bay County next week, this will help them to be able to control that traffic and get through the traffic easier, put a red light on so they can move through. We're pretty excited about that. So you'll probably see some folks out working, but this will happen within the next couple of weeks, and just wanted to make you aware of that. And Mayor, that is my report.
All right, thank you. And thank you to you and all the staff and the volunteers that ensured that we had another great 4th of July celebration. I too was away and was not able to attend the 4th of July, which is always a great time. Usually on the float, having to remind Commissioner Purnell not to throw all the candy out on the First Street. So it's always a great time of celebration. I was actually in Boston doing some research there and completing my PhD. Had a chance to research at Harvard University, and so we'll say if our access to our libraries here is a lot easier than having access to the Harvard's libraries. It took a pre-application plus a 2-hour interview looping around the campus session to get the card I needed to actually get access to the library. And then even the doors are locked, so if you don't have a card, you just can't walk in. So the privileges we have here at the Bay County Library and our other surrounding libraries, Florida State, Gulf Coast Library, we're very fortunate for that to have open access, public access to our libraries here. But while I was there, I did get a chance with my family to attend their 4th of July celebration. And I have to say, I think ours is better. Not just because I'm the mayor of Lynn Haven, but actually our fireworks show lasted longer. Theirs started 5 minutes late and ended 5 minutes early. So our fireworks show actually lasted longer than the Boston fireworks show. Now, they had a few more people, about 500,000 people were there, but I think we still had a better fireworks and a different diversity of activities for our community here. So kudos and great job once again on having the best 4th of July celebration in Northwest Florida and the best fireworks that I've seen, throughout our nation. One thing I would like for us to consider, I think we might have talked about this maybe a couple of years ago, and of course we've had some other focal points that we've been looking at, but the courts there at Mowat, if we could maybe schedule a time to talk with Superintendent McQueen, maybe the principal there at Mowat Middle, and of course staff and yourself about possibly what would it take for us to convert those into maybe tennis, pickleball courts, something that our citizens in that area could have access to in the evening time. I know we have some more pickleball courts coming over, I think in the Bel Air area, but I think it'd be good to have some there. The times I have gone out to the sports complex, those are slammed, waiting lines of people. So it's possible that will help maybe, especially in the evening time, take some of the traffic to another area so it just won't be all compact at the sports complex.
Mayor, if I may, as you mentioned just now, I did speak with some ladies who consistently play the pickleball, and I've actually set up the schedule so people can play to 11 and get off and come on. So everybody who shows up gets a chance to play. And they did ask me to, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this in my report. They did ask me to ask if it was possible. The outdoor basketball courts are not right there by our pickleball courts and sports complex are not on the outdoor part are not they're not being accessible, or they're accessible but not being used as much as the pickleball. So they said if there's any way they could put markings on the basketball courts. There's 2 basketball courts out there. And if there was any way to paint them for pickleball, that they can actually utilize them, because there's a demand for pickleball. And they were wondering they thought it was great about Bel Air, getting the pickleball courts, but there's very little parking there, and they don't want to overwhelm the neighborhood when the pickleball courts get there, because people show up to play pickleball, man.
They do.
Mayor, I do want to just have Justin talk about the outdoor courts, because then we have a fight on our hand with our basketballers. Justin.
Yeah, so there's definitely a demand for pickleball. Biggest issue with that, we have approached possibly trying to stripe the basketball courts. It's just this now that kids are out of school, they're actually utilize the courts. So you can't, predict when they're going to go to the courts. So how do you tell one who, is allowed to play at that time?
I think the pickleballers, they get their pickleball time is like during, it's in the morning, like when you open up inside for pickleball.
Correct.
And they said that they don't really get the opportunity to, play off work schedule hours. And they said, to me, it's a question of the basketball people are inside playing, and there's not really much outdoor activity that's said for basketball, but I'm not there. So
we host our scheduled activities in the afternoon. So when people get out of school, they would utilize the outdoor courts, because we're having our volleyball, basketball league indoors. So all of those kids or adults that cannot play indoors, they move to the outdoor courts. So I just think, us giving them an outlet to play on the outdoor basketball courts, it would kind of clash.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do utilize those courts. I know they think people don't, but they absolutely do utilize.
I'm just glad y'all brought it up, because I was talking to some ladies, and I told them I'd mention it. So it was just, I needed to chime in, you know what I'm saying?
No problem. So if we could look at that as an option for expanding our pickleball and looking at those moored courts as an option. All right, City Attorney. All right, this time we'll be going to our consent agenda. Is there anything that we would like to pull off the consent agenda? All right, is there a motion for it?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Peebles, second by Commissioner Perno. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift?
Yes.
Mayor Nelson?
Yes, motion passed. Old business quasi judicial public hearing at 9:39 or 9:40 a.m. City Attorney.
Right, so as it's a quasi-judicial hearing, if you're going to, even the developer team or any affected parties, if you raise your right hand, if you're going to present any testimony today, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And obviously, if there was any ex parte communication with the developer team, you guys can disclose that now. That obviously last night wasn't ex parte. We were all here together at a workshop, so you don't need to discuss that.
After the meeting last night, I did speak to the developer, because there was the TPO in their priority plan, they did list a widening for a 4 laning of 389 from Baldwin to 390, and there is some funding there for it. So I mentioned it to the developer that it might be a way of researching just, in the same scenario that the Mill Bayou issue came up, and then where the widening project reinforced the intersection of Cato Road and the intersection of 389 and 390, put the extra turn lanes in and so forth. And we appealed to them when we were having the issue with the Arbor apartment complex coming in. So I thought maybe the developer could contact DOT and because you're going to put in a turn lane, but then a couple years down the road, they're going to 4-lane the road. So, it might be a possibility where DOT can step in and maybe help fortify that intersection.
I was going to request or let you know that there has been a request from the developer this morning to be allowed to have a continuance on this item and table it again while they do research on some other possibilities. That is a request that I've had this morning. And that he is here if you would like to have him explain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Morning. I was thinking the meeting was this evening, so I apologize for the attire. I would have went home and changed and been more presentable, but wanted to thank you guys very much for taking up this matter. Because of all the input that workshop last night was very productive, in our opinion. We're still very excited about this project and it's moving forward. We wanted, with some of the input that we've received about the DOT, we would just feel like if it is okay with you guys, if y'all want to take it up, that's of course up to you guys. But if it would help for us to have more of our ducks in a row, just to table it for this meeting and then re-adjourn next meeting.
Is everyone okay with that?
I am. Yeah, I think what we've done, we've opened the public hearing. I think if we just do a motion to hold the hearing open, continue it to, if the next meeting is fine?
Yes, sir.
You don't need more time than that? Yeah. Just hold the public hearing open, continue it to the next meeting. As long as we announce that today, we don't have to re-advertise or anything. Obviously, it'll be on the agenda.
I'll make the motion as stated by the attorney.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any comments from the public? City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Parnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Mayor Nelson?
Yes. Motion passed.
It'll be July 23rd at
Yes.
5:30.
Yeah, for the 5:30 meeting. So we'll omit agenda item number 18 for today and move to new business, discussion and possible approval to set the proposed millage rate and hearings date pursuant to the TRIM Act. Director of Finance.
Again, good morning. Each year I come to you with a calendar and a proposed millage rate. This is the first step in the budgeting process and required by the TRIM Act. The calendar states that we'll be having our meeting on September 10th with the workshop included as part of the scheduled meeting. And the second public hearing will be on September 24th. Also, the workshop will be part of the public meeting. These are your regular scheduled dates. We did not have to move it around because of Bay County or the school district. So those are your regular dates. They both will start at 5:30 in the afternoon in September, though. Also part of the package is the proposed millage rate, which of course is the absolute maximum we can charge. Last year, I brought you 4.23. We ended up at 4.0. This year, I'm bringing you 4.2. I don't have enough information from the state yet to tell you if that's going to be where we're going to have to land. They have not published any of their estimates for our revenues from the state. So I'm working with incomplete numbers.
And just for clarification, though you propose 4.2, we can always go lower.
We can only go lower, we cannot go higher. So that's why Mrs. Gaynor and I discussed this is the absolute max we could possibly need.
Okay.
And we will, of course, do everything we can to limit that. Truly, I'm waiting on the state.
Additional questions from the commission?
I do. So in the agenda package down there, I think it's the first page, it's showing like the rollback rate and how much we got last year and the projected this year.
Correct.
So is that just strictly a projection? It's not based on anything the state has given yet? Or
The page with the red printing on it, is that what you're asking about?
the one right above it with all the like math and everything?
Well, these are the actual forms that are filed with the state.
Okay.
So those are real numbers that are on those forms, with the exception of the 4.2. If we change the 4.2, then all the calculations are redone.
Okay. So I know, again, that this is, and thank you for explaining it so well last year, about how this is, like the mayor said, this is just the maximum. This does not mean that 4.2 is what we're going with.
No.
So I just also want to reiterate to that, anyone that's listening, just because it says 4.2, that doesn't mean that we're going to 4.2.
Correct.
But while we're in this phase, I kind of wanted to open the discussion a little bit. I ran some of the numbers based on my opinion on it all. As you know, last year I was a big proponent of, and what we ultimately did, so thank you for all the work you did on it. We ultimately went from 4.1 to 4.0. But based on the form that was, that we were talking about, the gross income we got from the millage rate last year at a 4.0 rate was $6.4 million. And based on the rollback rate, which means if we would have this year, then if we would have done 3.75 this year, we would have got the same amount as last year, which obviously with inflation, you wouldn't do 3.75. That's ridiculous. But of course, inflation needs to be factored into that math, right? So that's why, of course, we're not going at 3.75. That's why you'll get the rollback. But if we kept the millage rate at what it is right now, at 4.0, then we would still see an increase of 6.5% in our total income. That's about an extra $400,000 from last year than what we got this year, based on the numbers on that sheet. And with the national average of inflation being about 2 to 3% per year, I was like, well, yeah, but inflation has been pretty bad the past few years. So I went and researched what the national inflation has been over the past few years. In 2002, it was really high. It was like 6 or 7%. But in 2023, inflation was at 3.4%. And currently this year in 2024, it's sitting at 3.3%. Well, if we leave the millage rate at 4, we're still having an increase in our revenue of 6.25%, which is well above the inflation rate. So just keep in mind that I just wanted to run that math by you all, that unless something changes from the state, if we kept the millage rate the same, we're still going to end up ahead. So based on the new construction and raising of the valuation of homes, and everyone, even if you have a homestead exemption, your taxable value goes up 3% per year. So yeah, so just want to throw out there that 4.0, we're still looking at a win. We'd still be above inflation.
May I add one bit of information to that? When I do my calculations, I use the Bay County inflation rate, which is running at about 4% with the last numbers that I pulled.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions for Director of Finance? All right, is there a motion to approve to set the proposed millage rate and the hearing dates pursuant to the Trim Act?
Just a question. So both those meetings on September 10th and 24th are at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
And September 10th will be our first opportunity to discuss this issue.
Mrs.
At the
Gaynor
workshop?
has instructed me to set meetings with each of the commissioners individually.
Okay,
So like we
individually.
did have done in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, is there a motion for this?
I so move.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Vandegrift, second by Commissioner Perno. Any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Rich Walker. One point. It's been noted over the years that the meeting held to set the trim and all that was too late. You waited too long, almost to the day that it had to, actually to the hour, it had to be submitted to Sowell. So I would take a little concern of very good on the meeting date, setting a date that you're going to discuss this to make sure that you give it to people enough time to discuss it over a length of period before the due date, which is in September. If you get the meeting ready and get it done, that the information gets to Sowell, not exactly on the minute, and it's been that way. What the advice would be is to make sure you had all your ducks in the order before that due date. That we mean that your meeting, yes, there's going to be changes you're going to have to do at the last minute. You're going to do that at your meetings. But it was very close, and the people didn't have a good chance to chime in. So the date of the submission of the trim notices to Sowell should be thought of, give you a little lead time for your people and you to sit down and discuss it. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today, is submitting it for trim,
That's exactly.
which is early.
Pardon?
What we're doing today is submitting that max millage rate so it goes on the trim notice. So that's being done today.
Yeah, but
September is the final, the final adoption.
It's not, yeah. I gather that. Yes, I understand that. It's just you're leading into it, okay? But what I'm getting at is when you get ready to submit it to the county, Sowell, that you don't have to wait till the last minute. It gets very close.
You have to have two public hearings regardless.
Yeah, right.
And so that's the reason we have to do that. One of the things we're doing this year, Mayor, instead of doing a workshop by itself so that people can come, we're doing that on September the 10th inside the commission meeting so people know those dates ahead of time. The first workshop for the budget is September the 10th at 5:30. So there's not a separate one. People normally come to commission meeting. They'll already be here to hear that workshop, go through that budget very, very well. So I think, and then we approve the final one at the second meeting. So that's time for people to ask questions and come back, make any changes that will need to be made. That second short workshop will be inside the commission meeting. So there's nothing separate and people don't feel like they can make it. It's doing our regular commission meeting times. So I hope that helps.
I understand that, but what happened in the last past was we went down to the last minute. We went down to the last minute of submitting it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's...
And I do understand what you're saying, Mr. Walker. I think the conflict with us moving them, we will either have to have those meetings in August, or we also have that Labor Day, I think, lapse that creates the challenge for us having it earlier in September. So I do understand what you're saying. I think that's the challenge is, do we have it in August, or do we have it in September? And having it in September allows us to get more data as it relates to the budget so that we can get more information on submissions. So I think that's why we probably, end up cutting it closer to the deadline versus moving it earlier into August for that time.
Yeah, a little more lead time.
And remember, we cannot have public hearings before the county or the school board. So that's part of that problem as well.
Like I said, you have until, the deadline is September 30th to do your final budget.
Right.
So, I mean, we're still 2 weeks ahead of that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, the schedules are very tight. Please let me assure you, we have never missed a deadline since I've been here. All of the paperwork has been submitted within the required timeframes. So the pressure's on my department to make sure that all of that happens.
All right, thank you. Additional public comments? All right, there's a motion to approve the proposed millage rate and the hearing dates pursuant to the TRIM Act. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Vandegrift?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Mayor Nelson?
Yes, motion passed. Discussion and possible approval of most qualified bidder for the FDOT funded Tennessee Avenue Sidewalk Project for engineering services to Dewberry Engineering as the most qualified bidder. All right, so you the.
Here, we're actually at item 20.
Oh, my bad, I checked that one already. Sorry about that. Check 19. I was wondering why you were standing up. I'm like, you're not the director of CRA. So, number 20, discussion of possible approval of the task order with Dewberry for $55,000.
So unfortunately, this is one of the other unfunded mandates set forth by EPA or DEP. This lead and copper rule revision came about in 2021. The city began working on it with a vendor called 120 Water. We've got an initial inventory established. However, we've got to take this on to the next steps and complete the work so that we can submit to DEP. The proposal before you is for $55,000, and this will complete the lead inventory, and then we will submit everything to DEP by the deadline in October, and then move forward with our lead and copper replacement plan.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lightfoot? All right, is there a motion for this?
So moved.
Second.
All right, comments from the public? All right, City Manager, you call the vote.
Commissioner Vandegrift?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Mayor Nelson?
Yes, motion passed. Now, agenda item number 21.
Good morning. This item is in regards to the sidewalk project that we're working on for Tennessee Avenue. If you recall, this is a project that was funded 100% by an FDOT grant. City staff submitted or issued an RFQ for the engineering services. The city received 3 quotes for the engineering services of this project. One of the proposals was incomplete and therefore considered non-responsive. The 2 remaining proposals were reviewed by a review committee, and you'll see this in the agenda packet. It appears that the most qualified engineering firm for this project is Dewberry Engineering, so we're here today to request approval of the most qualified engineering firm for this engineering project.
Okay. There are questions from the commission?
Oh.
Yes, I just have one question. The city's not paying any of this. This is all being paid by FDOT, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right, additional questions?
Pretty close. These 2 firms are like 1 point apart, so And this is qualifications, right?
Yes, and just to clarify, as part of the procurement process, there is absolutely zero communication between the reviewers. So yes, it is close, but those are the numbers. I'm not going back to the reviewers and asking them, hey, can you look at this? Because it looks really close. It is what it is. The fact is that Dubé was the most qualified based on the numbering, on the scoring.
All right, are there any additional questions? Anything, Commissioner Vandegrift? All right, any additional questions, Commissioner Perno?
No, sir.
All right, is there a motion for this?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
All right, motion by Commissioner Vandegrift, second by Commissioner Warwick. All right, is there any comments from the public? All right, City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Discussion only about water and wastewater rate increases.
The Finance Review Committee has met twice. I have presented a couple of different scenarios to them. They have forwarded on a recommendation to you. Commissioner Warwick, when I first returned, you asked if the increases that I had recommended last year were going to be sufficient for this year. My answer today is no. We have experienced an emergency at the water treatment plant. You've heard me quote $782,000. That was not calculated in my numbers for last year. I have recalculated, come up with, again, I gave them several different options. They chose one. What I will tell you is the options that I gave them, again, did not include any emergencies. So I have concerns about the sewer budget. We have an aging infrastructure. It needs maintenance. It needs significant improvement. We are doing everything to cut the budgets. I absolutely understand that. I support that citywide. But I do have concerns that next year I may come to you, or who's ever in this position comes to you and says, we've had yet another emergency that was not budgeted, and the increase for the following year will be even greater. All that being said, they have voted and agreed to recommend to you what I have labeled as option 2B. We are not recommending any increase on the water sides. What I had recommended to you last year is sufficient for the water department. So that's a 15-cent increase per 1,000 gallons. The sewer side, per my earlier statements, we will have a $1.57 increase per 1,000 gallons, which will mean for an average home would be $8.60 a month. For the commercial side, again, no additional increase to what I recommended last year, 15 cents per 1,000 gallons of water. On the sewer for commercial, the committee decided that they wanted the commercial to bear more responsibility for these increases, and they recommended that we go to $11 a gallon per 1,000 gallons of sewer. And that would mean $19.52 for a business that uses 5,000 gallons a month. Mrs. Gaynor asked me to also include my original documents from last year. They're the ones with the watermark on the ankle. So you can see what we talked about last year versus what we're talking about this year. Questions?
Yes. So, if I recall, when we discussed the water and sewage rate increase, I believe it was on a proposed scale so that we could stop borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul as it related to, our funding. Is this what you're proposing? Is this still part of that scale that was initially discussed?
So 2 things. We have stopped the transfers between the enterprise funds. We are no longer taking money out of sanitation to fund sewer. I'm trying to give you numbers that tell you exactly what it costs to run the sewer department, not what's left over after the other enterprise funds chip in. So those transfers have stopped. The other thing is the proposals that we have here. I was directed by the Finance Review Committee with a 5-year time span. Last year, they told me they wanted the budget balanced in 5 years. That's what happened with the sheets that have the diagonal watermark. This year, the proposal that I have in front of you, the 2B, actually extends 1 more year. We're using now the rolling 5-year concept rather than here we were going to be done in fiscal 28. Now each year, whenever this is brought to you, it'll be the next rolling 5 years. What is also included here is the first year of debt service for the expansion project. That's part of the increase. Mr. Lightfoot can give you more information about when he anticipates that to start, but from my calculations, I included the very first year of debt service for an SRF loan for $50 million starting in fiscal 29.
And that does answer my second question, which would be, is any of this actually helping towards the expansion?
1 year's debt service for a 20-year SRF loan.
Got it. So we're in some ways planning ahead with this increase towards that expansion.
Yes, sir.
My second question would be, I know earlier, or third question really, earlier Commissioner Peebles made reference to the millage rate, staying at 4.0, 4.2, being currently proposed at 4.2, dropping to 4.0. In regards to the debt servicing, would this be less impactful? Or I guess, is the only way that we can fund the expansion, is the only way we can fund that, is that through the actual department itself?
Correct. It's apples and oranges. Yep. So the trim money is for general fund, which is a governmental agency. The enterprise funds, the utilities, are set up like, for lack of a better word, their accounting is more attuned to a for-profit business.
Correct.
They are completely separate entities.
I do understand that part. My question is, so none of the money that we take from our millage rate can
None of the
play-
millage can go to the utility. Nope.
Okay, so the only way that we can get citizens, or not necessarily get citizens, the only way that we can actually plan ahead is what we're doing now, is by increasing rates for sewage, is the only way that we can sort of plan towards the future
Well,
then.
we're planning ahead, but we're also still playing catch up for the years that there were no increases.
Correct.
And I understand the rationale at the time. We were running through emergencies and people were hurting. But now we're in inflationary times, as we discussed earlier. The costs to the city are rising. Hauling is rising. The sludge removal is rising. Everything is rising. And the city can no longer absorb those costs. We have to pay them or pass them on to the end user.
Okay. And when you mentioned emergencies, so we have this increase or proposed increase.
Correct.
And it includes a 1 year of debt servicing towards a $20 million loan on a proposed $50 million expansion. However, what happens if we have an emergency? Will that actually eat into that 1 year of debt servicing that we're hoping to gain from this increase? Or is that, or you also?
If I'm still here or if my replacement is here, we're going to have this exact same conversation next year. And I would assume every year following.
I understand that. I guess let me clarify my question. So we're increasing rates. So if I go to a citizen and say, hey, you know, we need to have that $50 million expansion, maybe a little easier for us to increase this rate so that we can all sort of, you know, add to that $50 million expansion, have a less, you know, overall debt ratio for our city. But then an emergency comes up, and then let's say 3 years from now, we're wondering, okay, did we spend that money that we thought that we were going to be putting towards debt servicing on that emergency? So because we're not putting anything aside for an emergency, if another $700,000 emergency occurs and we have, let's say, $1 million set aside for that 1 year of debt servicing from the increase, would that 700,000 be taken from that 1 million?
Yes.
Because of that
the short
surplus?
answer. Yes, is the short answer.
Got it. All right. Any other questions for Director of Finance or for Mr. Lightfoot?
Is our sanitation fund still healthy enough that during an emergency we could pull from that? You can pull from enterprise to enterprise, right?
Is it healthy? Yes, it is the healthiest of the utilities. Do I recommend doing that? Absolutely not.
Okay. But worst case scenario?
Yes.
Yes, you can do that.
All right. Any additional questions, Commissioner Ward?
No, sir. I appreciate the update. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Vandegrift?
A couple of questions. On the 782,000, is that the accumulation of the money that we've paid to have the pond cleaned out?
It's $189,000 for the pond liner, $150,000 for the labor to pump the pond, and the rest is for the pumping.
Were we in violation of something and that's the reason we had to have it done? Chris is going to say, oh, no, she's asking
Rejection
me.
pond, right?
Hmm?
Was that to replace the rejection pond?
Reject pond at the wastewater plant. And the answer to your question, yes, ma'am, that the reject pond is designed for any effluent leaving the plant that does not meet your expectations of your treatment. It's supposed to divert the water into that and then reintroduce it into the treatment stream. Over the years, because of the lack of the centrifuge and the lack of the previous contractor being able to haul sludge, they had to divert sludge to the pond, which is not what it's designed for. So it had about 5 feet of sludge in the pond that had to be removed because it had taken up capacity of the reject storage. So we had to remove the sludge. First time the pond had been empty since at least 2012. And then that exposed the damage to the liner that had to be repaired.
The reason I'm asking that question is because I've had several questions from citizens about did we have to do that now? And that's the reason I'm asking.
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
And while I have you up here, at what level is the sewage plant at now, capacity-wise?
Consistently, we've been around 76%.
Okay. Because last night at the workshop, that was some discussion. You know, what's the impact on these developments on our
And a number to keep in mind for that, engineers use typically 200 to 350 gallons a day per single-family home for a sewage capacity.
So we're not at 110%, we're at 78% capacity.
Around 76% consistent.
76.
All right, thank you. All right, couple more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned possibly a loan by 2029.
Beginning the loan in 2029, Mr. Lightfoot has told me that it's possible we could start the expansion in fiscal '28. Typically, they give you a grace period after you sign the documents. It's a lengthy process to get approval for these loans, and I would suggest that sooner is better than later. But after the construction starts, I assumed that it would be 12 months before we started the payments.
And this is an SRF loan?
State revolving fund.
At what percent, do you think?
1.3 is what I calculated it at, which is what one of our existing SRF loans is right now.
So we have to work toward making a payment as part of our debt service on that $50 million.
Correct.
Right. So just a couple of things, clarification. When you do SRF loans, there is anywhere from 25 to 50% forgiveness on those loans, okay? Yeah, that's part of that.
The possibility.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
The second thing with SRF loans is the percentage is very low. Sometimes it's as low as 0.8, 0.9% on those loans. Yeah. So it comes from the state revolving funds is where it comes from. So we want to make you aware of that as well.
So if the state is healthy, sometimes they feel like forgiving. What do we have to do to be forgiven?
They never guarantee it, but they always, they hint around it.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's kind of like when we took out the $5 million loan from community disaster from FEMA. They don't always tell you they're going to do it, but every single city says they will forgive that loan. Sure enough, a year later, it was forgiven. And that was $5 million off the books.
That's all.
Did you have any questions?
Just to clarify, your rate increase, you're suggesting to go a year ahead, like to take 26 increase and make it 25. Is that when you raise the commercial rate to $11 a gallon? Or am I not following correctly?
So if you look at the page, at the bottom, it says option 2B ending in fiscal 2029. I'm not sure in which order.
Page 3, on the commercial side, right?
Yeah, I assume you're asking about commercial. And at the bottom, the block at the bottom of the page should say option 2B ending in fiscal 2029. Is that what you're looking at? And then in green, it says commercial fiscal 25 proposed adjustment, including pond maintenance in 24. Mind if I step forward and show you?
I just didn't see $11 a gallon. I saw $8.26. Oh, okay.
And that would be for,
That's a 2B. Okay.
that would be starting October 1.
Yeah, I was watching under here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It'd be a $3.75 increase.
Just for the sake of the public, the percentage of capacity, Mr. Lightfoot, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to have a plan in place by the time we're at 75% capacity, correct?
Right, and that is what the city had agreed to in the past, was in fiscal year 2024, we would start the expansion, which is, why we put the RFQ out and then signed the contract with Mott McDonald to start that expansion per DEP statutes.
Right, and per the law, yeah, we have to have a plan in place when we get to that capacity.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions?
Mayor, and also just a reminder is that the debt has been paid down from the sewer. So the debt was eating up a lot of the sewer's money. So we have continued to pay that debt down in the sewer to get the sewer healthy enough so that we can borrow. Total debt for the city at the end of this fiscal year will be $38 million. So that's a good thing.
And I guess if we, continue to have a healthy sewer and increase, not necessarily the rates, but our development increases, then once we take that $50 million loan, then the sewer fund would actually be able to take care of itself in regards to paying that.
That is absolutely the goal.
That is correct.
And I got one more thing. So you also, like these new townhomes, right? If they come in, they're going to be paying impact fees. And those impact fees would go towards, part of it could go towards sewage.
Yes, there are dedicated sewer impact fees. Those are obviously meant for expansion. City manager and I have had discussions about that money, about what's in the balance today. She and I have disagreement on how that money should be used. We're working on the sewer budget as we speak. We are using some currently, we are using some impact fees to operate the sewer plant in creative ways for next year. I tend to be very fiscally conservative. I think that's a good thing in my role. My recommendation would be that we take all of this impact fees and use it for the Headworks project and/or the expansion. Thereby, the loan would be less money. That's my personal opinion. Clearly, it's city manager's responsibility to make the decision.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks. So, of course, we'll have further discussion and decisions to make in regards about the water and wastewater rate increases with a look to the future of how those can positively impact our debt moving forward. Now we have another discussion about rates.
But before we leave on water and sewer, I think part of it today was just to get some direction. Obviously, if we're going to do these increases for starting October 1, we'll need to do a rate resolution and do the increases. It'll go on the utility bill for one cycle and maybe come back in October. So I think staff was just looking for direction. If you guys are good with 2B, we'll get the resolution ready, get it advertised, and then you guys would actually adopt the resolution to actually increase the rates. So I think we just need a direction on what rates to put in there. So if you guys are okay with 2B, that's what we'll start with. We don't need a vote today. We just wanted some direction because we do have to do these rate increases.
Got it. That wasn't clarified to us. Yeah. All right. Any feedback from the commission in regards to increasing the rates or keeping them the same or going with the proposed?
Obviously, when we have that resolution, it'll be a hearing. You guys can always change it at that point in time, but just direction for getting the stuff drafted and getting it advertised. Start with 2B.
I would suggest that we start with 2B and listen to our citizens as far as what we're hearing. So that's what we have time.
And this is what the Financial Review Committee suggested, right, 2B?
Yeah, we met Wednesday morning, and they came up with this.
Commissioner Vandegrift.
How many businesses will this affect? Do you know?
We had 500 commercial accounts.
That's what it said yesterday.
There are 10,700 and some odd accounts in total. Less than 500 of them are commercial.
Just curious.
Commissioner Ward, how do you feel about 2B as a proposal for us to start discussing?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, so yes, let's move forward in looking at 2B as our resolution, and we'll go from there. Anything else on 22? All right, discussion about the stormwater assessment rates. Now, are you looking for direction as well?
We are looking for direction as well, yes, sir.
Okay.
So what you have before you and on the screen for the residents is the 6-year proposal that we went over last year with Stantec as what, the stormwater non-ad valorem assessment should be increased every year and what the revenue will be. So next year, we are proposing to stay in line with last year's increase. The vacant fee per 3,900 square foot would go to $39.30. The non-single family fee per 3,900 of impervious would go to $169.40, and the single family tier 1 at $91.30, single family tier 2 at $169.40, and the single family tier 3 at $254.10. And keep in mind, this is the revenue generated for the stormwater department for the day-to-day operating. This does not cover projects and anything like that. It is just for our day-to-day, the personnel, the piping, the work orders, the ditch digging, the pond cutting, that kind of work.
All right, so do have a couple of questions. If this is, so the stormwater assessment is just for the day-to-day operations of the department.
Yes, sir.
How do we plan to fund how do we actually plan to fund the projects then?
So we continue to reach out for any grant opportunities available, any legislative appropriations that we've gotten in the past. But in order to achieve the capital improvement projects that Stantec presented, back in 2020 or 2021, when that was first initially done, it was the continuous increases to begin building your reserves and working towards completing your capital improvement projects. So in order to complete any of the capital improvement projects, you would have to continue to increase and build your reserves. And as of right now, we have the 6 HMGP projects that we are working towards. Part of the consent agenda was approving those grant extensions. But we do have more stormwater projects that we will continue to pursue other funding options for.
Okay. Because some of the feedback I get from the citizens is that the assumption is that what we're doing with the stormwater assessment is to actually help improve or complete stormwater projects.
Correct. And as you can see, as what's before you, this year we generated $1.4 million. A prime example of a project on Vermont Avenue from 14th to 11th Street to where it discharges into the bay, that piping needs to be replaced, and it's upwards of $650,000. So if we were to approve that project, it would wipe out over half or almost half of your revenue for the year, which in turn cuts back on your day-to-day maintenance of your ditch digging, your cutting, your pipe culvert replacements that you must do.
Okay. And I guess another question that I'm asked and proposing or asking here is, with the assessment, of course, we've looked at it, several times over the past few years with Stantec bringing us different scenarios, commissioners proposing different scenarios and studies. With the stormwater assessment, is this something that we're seeing for how long are we looking at this being an assessment for the citizens? Is this for the duration of the actual department itself, or?
As long as you want to fund the stormwater department, you will have to have a stormwater non-ad valorem assessment.
So without the assessment, then there's no stormwater department then?
That is correct.
Yeah. Or you can start borrowing back from the sanitation, which I don't recommend we do.
Okay. All right. So although we're talking about this individually, from what we're being given today, that we're looking at a stormwater increase, a waste and water, or a waste increase, and then an ad valorem increase. If I'm looking at all of this is what we're looking at increasing across the board. Although I know ad valorem can be lowered, but I'm just saying the feedback that I want to get from citizens is, what we're leaving here today is saying is that there's a potential to increase all three of these, is what's being proposed today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Are there any additional questions for stormwater?
Well, so as we've seen, the stormwater has gotten better over the past few years by it being funded, but that would mean that the effectiveness is going like this, but at some point it's going to level out. So we just need to be mindful of that. If it levels out, then we wouldn't want to continue to do these massive of increases every single year. So I don't know if that is fiscal 2028 when we start saying, hey, we need to stop doing it this way and restructure how we're doing it, but a restructuring does need to happen at some point. Also, I just want to voice again, I understand that it needs to be funded. I don't agree with the math of the tiered system. I just want to put that on record. It's not even across the board as it should be. If we're looking at the BDUs and you do the average BDU per tier, it's not remotely close to fair. But I just wanted to voice that on record that, I understand that it needs to be funded. I'm not a fan of the tiered approach.
All right. Any additional questions for Mr. Light? One more question is, at what rate are we still transferring funds to stormwater? Have we completely stopped transferring or?
Completely stopped transferring.
Okay, so with this, stormwater is?
This is a standalone division as well.
Okay, awesome.
Stormwater exists only off the assessment. The department does, correct? Stormwater department exists because of the assessment.
Correct.
Correct.
Previously, before the assessment, there was I think, $3 or $5 a month fee, whatever it was.
And where did we get our funds from before? We transferred funds over, right?
Right, funds were transferred from the Water and Sanitation Department years and years ago.
Yes.
That's how they funded it.
Now, sanitation is solid, and it's, in the past, they've transferred funds from sanitation and water.
Right.
So is there ever a time when sanitation can support stormwater and there would be a need for an assessment?
That would be a finance question, but again, we haven't raised any of the sanitation rates at all, so we cannot continue to take money from something we're not raising the rates on to function.
True.
But that would be a finance question.
Kevin, just before we go to that, this is the 5-year plan that the commission has already approved. So how do you guys?
Yeah, so if you look at page 182 of your packet, it's that second page of last year's resolution. You guys, in that final resolution, approved the 5 years of rate increases. That we still have to come back and do a resolution where the city manager approves the assessment roll and is authorized to send it to the tax collector. And so really the only direction we're looking for today is, do we stick with this 5-year plan that you guys approved last year? And then we'll come back and do, similar to the water and sewer, we'll do a annual resolution at this rate that's plugged in here, 169 per EBU for starting October 1, 2024. So we just wanted to make sure you guys didn't want to make any changes.
And when we voted on this, we assured the citizens of Lynn Haven that we would review this every year to see if it needed to be maintained. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking a look at it, and you're saying that we still need to maintain this. And according to last night's workshop, when the people came up and talked about stormwater drainage, that's still an issue. Even though we've come a long way.
That's right.
It's still a problem in some areas.
Correct.
That's correct.
The city of Lynn Haven is one of the lowest lying points here. I think Commissioner Perno has the facts on exactly where we fall elevation-wise, but the city of Lynn Haven, of course, will always have stormwater and tidal issues, but it has definitely improved with the help of the assessment.
And Chris, would you share with them just some of the projects we've done on grant that we could have not done just with the stormwater assessment, that we fixed stormwater in some of those areas with grants?
So we have the 6 HMGP projects, which include Pine Forest Estates, Dundee Lane, Acme Lane, Bradley Circle, Wyoming Avenue, and 11th Street. And then we use some ARPA funding to add the outfall on East 7th Street, the 1600 block of Indiana, and then we did some projects in-house as far as widening and expanding some of the ditch capacity. And then there was the Georgia and Pennsylvania Avenue project. I don't remember how that one was funded, but it was in 2020 when that one was done.
Totaling millions of dollars.
The Vermont Avenue outfall as well.
So you're saying all those projects were completed not using the assessment money?
Correct. They were all completed with either a grant or an appropriation.
There will come a time 5 years down the road that we need to look at continuing the assessment or finding out a way to fund the department.
And if you recall, again, there's no emergency money in here. For example, 19th in Montana, that 72-inch culvert that collapsed, and we had to use some ARPA funding and some and a little bit of the assessment money to replace that with a box culvert. So any type of an emergency, is not covered in that we would have to fund somehow.
All right, any additional questions for Mr. Lightfoot? Any questions, Commissioner Ward?
No, sir.
All right, is everybody okay to move forward with the 2025 proposal?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Peebles?
I mean, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm just one person out of 5, so I'd rather not kick the can down the road. I mean, it does need to be funded, but I still think the tiered structure is flawed. We got to fix but I don't know if that's something we can look at now, or what would it take to get Stantec out here and sit down with me to reevaluate the tier structure?
About $35,000. And keep in mind, we reevaluated the tier structures last year, so Stantec's recommendation would be this again. Of course, there are other companies that have a different methodology. This just happens to be the most common throughout the state of utilizing. But there would be a $30,000 to $40,000 expense in having someone other than Stantec come in to look at the different ways of charging your assessment.
We did have, I believe it was Mark Lawson that came in. Were you on the commission at that time when Mr. Lawson came? We did have a different alternative methodology that we did.
His was based upon the taxable value.
On the improvement value. So it would be based on the improvement value of your property. So that's one, Stantec, this is their methodology. So, I mean, this is what they're going to propose every time. You'd have to go to a different vendor if you want different methodologies.
So do we recall, and this is just for historical data, I know because we've had these discussions before, I think every year we talked about stormwater, reassessing it. I believe Commissioner Ward sort of championed reevaluating the tier method, and then we did have Stantec to revitalize it. And then we actually had several discussions with Mr. Lawson on his method for stormwater assessment. Do we recall why we chose to stay with the Stantec methodology versus Mr. Lawson's proposal?
If I recall correctly, I think that was just the preference of the commission at the time to continue with this method versus changing, unless Ms. Gaynor or Kevin has another recollection.
There wasn't any particular reason over the other. I think we had already had Stantec and spent a bunch of money on them and did it, and so we just kind of stuck with it, tweaked it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, to Commissioner Peebles' point, at any point in time, we can change the methodology. We would just do another assessment ordinance and resolution and change that. But you would have to bring in a consultant.
Is it sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it does. There would be administrative fees factored into the rates. I mean, technically the assessment would pay for that. I mean, it's still obviously the citizens are paying for it, but it's not like you get that money back obviously through the assessment.
And in order to do that, we would really need to start like in October of if that was the commission's preference to look for other alternatives, we would need to start that in October, either do an RFQ or find a contract that we could go off of for a consultant and then establish it and then move on. So at this time of the year, we would be able to present what the assessment would be with their methodology to the commission.
Okay. Now I'm starting to remember I remember you explaining this in the past, but why do we have to use a consultant when it's just basic math? Like, we have a finance director already. I can sit down for 6 hours and run the math.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when you do an impact fee, so it has to be based on localized data. I mean, you have to be able to support it with the report. And so the city can't do that on their own. So basically, you hire a consultant, they bring in an economist and engineers and stuff, and they have to justify what that method is. Now, certainly, once we have this method in place, we could always tweak the numbers and the math on it. But if we want to totally change the methodology, like this one is based on impervious surface, whereas Lawson's is based on improvement value. So it's two totally different approaches.
Could we look at these tiers and change the BDU, the price per BDU?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We approved a 5-year plan looking at the EBU each year. So yeah, absolutely, you can, and that's just a function of math.
Right.
You change it, and here's how much money you get. Yeah.
Because here's my problem, is like if you take every single house, every single vacant fee, every single business, right? The average BDU should be around 1, meaning that on average, all of them are paying on average $169.40 if we were to do fiscal year 25. It's not anywhere close to that. It's like 31% off. So that means like the tier 1 the tier 1 homes or the tier 3 homes are taking way more of the percentage than the others. So I'm okay with the tier as long as the BDUs are closer to the average. It's like a 31% discrepancy. Whenever you do math, it's like a plus or minus 2%. It's 31%. It's not even close.
So keep in mind too, when you look at the tiers and what the square footage is, typically the tier 3, they also are going to have a higher improvement value. So they're also going to be paying the higher assessment in that methodology as well as this one. It will just be, each, if you and I both have a 4,000 or greater square foot house, but your improvement value is higher than mine, our assessment will be different, whereas here it's the same. But for the most part, the money that you're going to be paying is around the same based upon the tiers now and the improvement value, just because typically your improvement value is higher with the higher square footage.
And I think that was part of the methodology with Jim Lawson as well. If you remember, he did have some residents paying like $690 that year, and then some of the businesses were lower than the resident's house, and you guys had a problem with that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's truly just based on, well, it's a 2-tiered approach. One, every parcel has a flat fee, so that's fair across the board. So if you own a piece of land, you're going to get $80. Then there's the increase on that is the tier 2, which is the improvement value. So yeah, you might have a small business that their improvement value is only $200,000, and you've got a house that's $600,000. Yeah, the homeowner's gonna be paying more than that business. But it's just based on the improvement value, the logic being, you've got more of an incentive and sort of more to gain, just like with fire protection. If I've got $1 million house, it's really valuable to me to have a good fire department, where if you have just a vacant land, it may be only worth, $80 to me. So it's the same theory. You don't want to flood $1 million house.
Yeah,
you would pay more to avoid flooding $1 million house than you would.
In theory, I agree with you, except that we're not doing it by improvement value. We're doing it by square foot.
We're not. I'm just telling you, that's what the other methodology is.
And not all we can all agree that not all square foot is created equal. If you got a house from the 1940s and a house that's built in 2024, the price per square foot is going to be significantly higher for the 2024. So, and there's a lot of houses in Lynn Haven, especially on that side of 77, that were built in the 80s, and they're made out of cinder block. So their price per square foot is significantly lower than like a brick house. So I know that everyone's had here besides me was on the commission when all that stuff was talked about, but I just had to get it off my chest, I guess.
So Mayor, are we moving forward with this one this year so we can have some direction of what we need to do?
But as 2 more commissioners, I'm sorry. Commissioner Warwick, how are you with the 2025 proposal?
So before I kind of make any decision on this, I want to see the rolls for all the addresses and take a look at that compared to last year. But one question I had is, I know one of the things we did was ditch digging. We contracted all that out. Is there any other efficiencies in the stormwater department that we could contract out that would be more cost effective?
We could likely do an analysis on our stormwater culvert work, and we could generate a cost of what it costs the city to do the pipe work orders, and then we could look at the price of like our push button contract or get additional quotes from contractors and see if there's any cost savings there of doing more pipe jobs, sub those out versus doing them in-house. We could definitely get those numbers together and present to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and Commissioner Vandegrift.
The question, what does seeing the rolls, hopefully, what information would that produce? Because I might want to see the rolls too. That's why I'm asking. Commissioner Ward, what do you hope to find from seeing the rolls?
Well, I had a discussion with Stantec last year, and there was a couple areas that need to be improved on, and I just want to make sure that those areas are have been looked at and corrected.
Okay, and you'll share that information?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you share that information that you get?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll let you do that then.
Great, thank you.
That's the only question I have.
Yeah. So yeah, if we'll move forward the resolution. Meeting adjourned.